So hi everyone, welcome to the SoTL Scholars information session. We're so excited to see everyone here. My name is Jenny and I'm the Senior Educational Developer, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning at our Center for Teaching Excellence and Innovation, and I'm joined by our wonderful director, Tommy, and my wonderful colleague, Matthew. Um, I'll be leading this program, the SoTL Scholars program, chairing the adjudication committee and working closely with the SoTL Scholars with the support of my colleagues. So I look forward to reading all of the wonderful proposals that will come in and answering any questions that you may have today or over email over the next couple of weeks. We are recording the session for folks who couldn't make it today, so we are asking that everyone save their questions for the end when the recording has stopped, or you can put your question in the chat so you don't forget it. And once we stop the recording, we'll get to those questions. And these slides will be posted to our CTEI webpage, and this recording will be emailed out to everyone and also available on our webpage, because I know that's probably one of the questions we'll get. So getting that out of the way now. So today's info session will go over some key information about the program, important dates, eligibility to apply, eligible projects, the funding ceiling, and some other information about the budget requirements for scholars, and of course, the application process. And like I said, we'll leave time at the end for questions. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I am presenting to you today. I live closest to our Steeles campus, which sits on the treaty land of the Toronto Purchase of 1787, also known as Treaty 13, which is the land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And more specifically, I live on land that sits under the Williams Treaties, which are land cession treaties signed in 1923 by 7 Anishinaabe First Nations, where many of the signatories were forced to sign and lost their hunting and fishing rights. And because we'll be talking about research today, I think it is especially important that we reflect on how people's access to, belonging on, and histories on / with land and spaces on that land impacts their ability and capacity to participate in research on their own terms, to lead research, and to have their voices be acknowledged, heard, and represented in research. So we'll begin. So the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, or SoTL Scholars Program, is a new program that the CTEI has launched this year that aims to foster scholarly activity at Yorkville University and Toronto Film School. It is a 2-year fellowship program, and at other institutions is commonly called something like teaching fellows. Unlike other sources of research funding that may be available here or at other institutions you're familiar with, SoTL Scholars isn't just about completing a research project and demonstrating, an accountable use of funds. We hope that scholars will also help us represent exemplary, reflective, student-centered, scholarly teaching and be champions for scholarship of teaching and learning within our community. So to that end, recipients or our scholars are expected to participate in a monthly community of practice in their first year and contribute to knowledge mobilization activities that will help bring evidence-based, creative, innovative practices to our faculty. And the CTEI, we will be closely supporting scholars in conducting their projects, and will advise on things like the budget, the timeline for your project, methods, etc. What that means is that we don't expect applicants to be experienced researchers, because we will be providing step-by-step guidance, and hopefully also building that community with our community of practice. So if you've got a project or a curiosity about something that's been going on in your classroom, we encourage you to apply. There will be up to 5 scholars per cohort and up to $20,000 of funding per project, and a little bit more on this shortly. Some important dates. Applications are already open and they will close on June 6th. So between now and then, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, or let me know at the end of today's info session. By the end of June or early July, we hope to notify and announce our recipients. And in July, there will be an onboarding session for our inaugural cohort. In August, the monthly community of practice begins. Who's eligible to apply? Full and part-time faculty members and instructors in all programs offered by Yorkville University and Toronto Film School are eligible to apply. Part-time faculty members are eligible if they have taught for at least 2 terms and are scheduled to teach for at least one upcoming term. Since we anticipate the project will examine, the project must examine teaching and learning at Yorkville University um, or Toronto Film School, and we anticipate that those projects will look at the scholars classroom. That may not always be the case, but that is likely going to be the case. So that's why we have that requirement. We know that many of our faculty also teach at other institutions, but we want to encourage and foster scholarly teaching within our teaching and learning context so that the research can directly benefit and enhance the experiences of teachers and learners here. So that's why we have that criteria. Given that this is a program focused on scholarship of teaching and learning, eligible projects must be scholarship of teaching and learning projects. So based on a bunch of definitions of SoTL that we've consolidated, proposed projects must purposefully examine teaching and learning to address a challenge and or opportunity in teaching and learning here, be informed by existing research, aim to enhance teaching and or learning experiences and or outcomes. And we could be talking about student learning and or outcomes, but also instructor development and or outcomes or experiences, all those things connected, so many and ors. And of course, because SoTL has such an emphasis on shaping practice, closing the loop between research and practice, projects must be shared with and beyond the Yorkville U and TFS communities. And we have some examples here, maybe, for example, through a co-developed workshop with the center, presentation at local or national conferences, publication, etc. The funding ceiling is, as mentioned earlier, $20,000, and applicants must submit an itemized budget plan as part of their application. And the CTEI may recommend partial funding of a project or funding for only some components of a project. We also do have budget guidelines that are unique to this program. So if you've looked at the Support for Scholarly Activity Fund or the SSAF, we share a lot of the same budget guidelines and eligible expenses, limitations, etc. But we do have also some additional budget guidelines. I'm going to paste this document into the chat. One sec. So if you take a look at that as I continue, I'll go over some of those unique budget guidelines now. First, and I think these are really exciting. Hopefully these don't feel limiting, but they feel like a way to really focus your project and the impact of the project. First, we expect that a minimum of 50% of the project's proposed budget should go towards student research assistance wages. Because of the nature of scholarship of teaching and learning, which is student-centered, aims to enhance student learning and outcomes, we want to create opportunities for students to be active in the process and products of this research, hopefully to even develop themselves as researchers or to develop their research skills, and to make sure that their voices are amplified and represented in all the great SoTL projects that are conducted. So that's sort of our first guideline. Up to $3,500 can be used for responsible conference costs, and of course, conferences must be relevant and strategically chosen, and we will help advise on that. Yeah. We also highly encourage scholars to invite and plan for their student research assistants to attend a conference, maybe local if that makes more sense budget-wise, ideally with the scholar, but the point is it's to provide them with that opportunity to engage in the research community and be a part of the dissemination effort. And lastly, and this is really exciting for us, we want to encourage applicants to think about how they might spend up to $1,000 on professional development for themselves that will meaningfully contribute to and or advance your teaching and or research practices related to the proposed project. So those are some things that are a little bit different from SSAF and that you should keep in mind when you're preparing your budget. Other budget guidelines will be in the document that's been put into the chat, linked on the previous slide, and it's also part of the application package, which I will be linking shortly. So some of the key requirements for our SoTL Scholars include, as mentioned previously, attending monthly community of practice meetings in their first year within the program. These meetings will be a great way for scholars to connect with one another, ask questions, share resources, and during those meetings, myself and my CTEI colleagues and possibly guest speakers, whatever we think will kind of really provide value and offer guidance to our SoTL scholars, will all be there to talk about things like the research design, to instrument design / creation, to data collection, to analysis, to preparing the manuscript for submission to a peer-reviewed journal if that is of interest. We're really hoping and to facilitate the program so that people who are newer to research or totally brand new to SoTL can still participate and do research that helps them answer a curiosity or explore a curiosity that they have about their own practice or classroom. Some of the other requirements, if applicable, so for research involving human participants, receive ethical clearance from our research ethics board. And of course, we'll support folks in preparing that application and receiving that approval. Use the funding within that 2-year period. Submit a project status report at the 1-year mark and at the end of the funding period. Share back the research with our community and acknowledge Yorkville University and Toronto Film School in knowledge mobilization activities that emerge as a result of successful funding. On to the application process. So I will put the application package link, which also includes that budget guideline document I linked separately in the chat. Excuse me. Applicants should review the information in the application package carefully before applying. Everything I've mentioned so far and will be mentioning in the info session is in the application package. And there is a template linked. One of the documents in that folder is a template for the itemized budget, as well as an eligibility form that needs to be included. So all that information should be there. I'll go over now the required application documents. There are 4 in total. First, of course, the project proposal, which should be no more than 3 pages, excluding references. This may seem short to some folks, but we encourage you to capture the essence of your project through the following sections: your project purpose / goals, your research questions, a brief overview of relevant context / literature justifying the need for or the significance of the project, proposed methods, including a detailed timeline, anticipated impacts on teaching and learning here, and how you plan to share your findings out to our community or beyond. While you're preparing the proposal, if you have questions about any of these sections, especially if you may feel newer to research or be looking to clarify something, you're worried about the structure, whatever it may be, please don't hesitate to email, and I'd be happy to jump into a call and kind of go through these pieces. More so than a perfect, quote unquote, perfect project proposal. We're excited to hear your ideas and what you're interested in exploring, and a lot of that refining and making it into a feasible study can, we'll work on that together in our community of practice meetings. The second document required is a narrative statement or letter of researcher intent that reflects your commitment to scholarly teaching and responds to these questions. What personal and professional experiences have inspired or motivated you to explore the project? What personal and professional experiences have prepared you to undertake the project? So we're interested in both your inspirations and your how you might have prepared. How does the project align with your teaching philosophy, your teaching goals, values, beliefs, practices, etc.? And how will you, as a SoTL scholar, seek to foster and sustain reflective and scholarly teaching at Yorkville University and Toronto Film School? We've noticed when we were looking at just doing a scan of funding opportunities available at different institutions across Canada, a lot of those funds do ask or ask applicants to submit a CV or a resume. But like I said, we don't expect applicants to have an extensive research background or a really long, lots of CV, research-related lines on their CV. What we care more about is your commitment to teaching in ways that bring in research and that demonstrate ongoing reflection. So we hope that this format creates space for folks to kind of talk about their experiences more flexibly. The third document is the itemized budget form. Fill it out to the best of your ability based on your proposed project, and please follow the budget guidelines. And the last document is the eligibility form. And you will just have to get your supervisor to sign it to make sure that you are teaching another course in an upcoming semester, and just to let them know that you're interested and that you've applied. At the application stage, you're not expected to have received approval for your project from the Research Ethics Review Board, but like I mentioned earlier, successful applicants will need to apply and receive approval if that's relevant to the study, if your project involves human participants. Submitting your application. So when ready, applicants can submit using this Microsoft Forms. I don't actually have the link on handy, but let me put that in the chat. Copy link. So here's the Microsoft form. It just asks for a little bit of information about yourself, so your name, your email address, your contact, etc. The part where it might get a little bit convoluted is we're asking folks to, in the last question on the form, copy and paste a link to a single OneDrive folder that contains the 4 documents I just went over. So your project proposal, narrative statement / letter of researcher intent, itemized budget form, and the eligibility form. So a link to the folder with all of those documents. And please make sure that you've granted me access to that folder and all of the documents in it. That's my email. And we're hoping this is a new program and a new process, but we're hoping that this helps keep things a little organized for us and hopefully also for everyone who's applying. Everything in one place, hopefully, fingers crossed. I think that's all I have in terms of slides. So I will stop the recording now and take questions, stopping the recording.